Hello everybody and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. Today I am going to be listening to, for the very first time, the brand new Acoustic Truth album, Soft But Still. Okay, so we've just had some crazy stuff happen here. In a comedy of errors, I recorded the intro to this video that you just saw, and then I basically was doing some checks, backed my camera up, or backed my chair up, hit this desk, knocked over my glass of pop that I had. Glass broke on the floor. I swiveled my chair around, hit the microphone fell, hit one of the lights I have here. Light was spinning, children were screaming, lightning flashed in the sky. It was chaos. And so I just had a moment. We are now about half hour after I recorded that intro. I had to clean up the broken glass. I am on a carpet right now, so I had to try to mop up as much as I could, and then I had to vacuum. And now where I'm standing is a little bit wet, but that's okay. Small price to pay. And what a hilarious way to start this video. I know that Ryan and Sarah of Acoustic Truth Ryan right now is probably laughing out loud. I do have some audio and some footage of this all just happening, so I'll play that now for you since you all are probably laughing hysterically, as you should be. It was a ridiculous situation. Play that now. Well, this will be hilarious for the blooper reel. I just spilled my pop, almost knocked over the microphone and the light. What a great start. Haven't even started yet. Whoop-de-doo. And so we will attempt to just move on as if nothing has happened, except the one difference now is I am not screwing around with the bottle anymore. I'm not screwing around with the glass anymore. I'm just going to have a bottle of Mountain Dew. Whatever. Hashtag no shame. Okay, let's start from scratch. So, if you've never seen one of my album reviews or reactions before on my channel, know that basically what's going to happen is I'm going to hit play at the beginning of the album, and I'm going to listen to this album all the way through for the very first time and give you my thoughts in real time. So, I'm going to be talking about production stuff. I generally don't go over lyrics that much, so if you're looking forward to me breaking down some of Ryan and Sarah's amazing lyrics, that's probably not going to happen very much. It's not something that I paid too much attention to. I'm more here for the production sort of aspect of things, how everything sounds, why it sounds the way they did, sort of, and in this case, because I know Ryan and Sarah so well, which I'll get to in a second, why I think they chose the sounds that they chose to be in the songs. Also, I'll talk about composition, song structuring, things like that. But anyway, who knows what I'll talk about? We'll see when we get there. So that's what I'm going to basically be doing, and that's sort of the structuring of this video. I also usually have to mention at the beginning of all of my album reviews and reactions that I can't include the audio from the album in the actual video. However, that's not the case with this video, and I am so privileged and so honored to say that because I know Ryan and Sarah, I know Acoustic Truth, they have both given me their blessing to go ahead and actually insert the audio from the album into this video. So you will be listening along to the album with me. Now, another very, very, very special thing to go along with that is that if you're watching this video before June 7th, 2021, know that you're going to be able to hear the album for the first time before it's even been released. Right now, as of the day I'm recording this, which is May 24th, unless it's been so long since I've been messing around for so long that it's already the 25th, but no, it's the 24th still. As of May 24th, the album is in pre-order sort of status. So you can go and pre-order the album before June 7th. And if you do that, I believe it is a reduced rate of maybe like $3.99, I think Ryan said. And then as of June 7th, it will be maybe $7.99. I'm not sure about those numbers, but I'm not here to sell you the album. I just want to let you know that that's the case with the album. Take that and do with it what you will. I know the album will also be on Spotify and things like that at the end of its pre-release schedule. So once it's actually released, you'll be able to listen to it anytime you want like that, as far as I understand. Let's see. One other thing I want to mention is that usually with my videos, I do a lot of rambling at the beginning. I talk about sort of my history with the artist. Not that in any previous videos I've actually had a real history with the artist, so I'm excited to talk about Acoustic Truth in this video. However, usually I talk a little bit at the beginning, then I get to the album, listen through the whole thing, and then at the very end, I'll do sort of my overview, my sort of general review of the album. So if you'll notice in the description of this video and on the timeline of the video, I've included timestamps to all the different sections, including all of the individual songs on the album. So you can click around the video to whatever part of the video you'd like to watch. If you want to skip everything and just get to the very end and watch and like hear my actual review, my thoughts of the album overall, feel free to do that. Don't feel obligated to watch any more than you want to. Also, if you have a favorite track on the album, you can just look at on the timeline of the video, like I said, and skip to that particular track. Let's see. I'm trying to go through my notes here. I'm so flummoxed with the craziness that has happened. I'm not sure. I want to make sure I get everything right, though, because I know this is a very special and important video, not just for me, but also for Ryan and Sarah, because that's something that I do need to mention as well. I am friends with Ryan and Sarah, but Ryan and Sarah know that I am going to be honest. If I hear something on this album that I do not like or that I do not think sounds good, I am going to bring it up and I'm going to talk about it. So do not feel like my knowing them and being friends with them is going to hinder my review. Obviously, it will affect my opinion of this album, but I think regardless, it's going to be an entertaining review. So stick around for that. I think that's everything I kind of wanted to get through before I started. So how do I know Ryan and Sarah? How do I know Acoustic Truth? If you're watching this video, I presume you probably are familiar with them already, and you will know what you know about them. But I get to tell you now something that I've always wanted to talk about online, but I've never really had an excuse to do it. And so I'm going to use this video to sort of go over my little history with the band Acoustic Truth. And I'll try to keep it to sort of like a reasonable length. I'm not going to talk for an hour now or anything like that. But anyway, I worked at a recording studio in Omaha, Nebraska for 7 years. And in the second year of that 7-year span, this guy called and said, hey, I'm in this acoustic duo, female, male singer, acoustic guitar. We want to do a song that has sort of like a beat to it, to have someone sort of rap along with it, sort of like a collaboration project. And they needed a studio to record the guitar at, and hopefully someone that could maybe make some drums for them. And we didn't normally do things like that at the studio I worked at. It was just myself and my boss at the time, Cleet Baker, a wonderful, amazing man who'd been in the industry at that time for over 40 years already, doing really, really amazing projects, but not a ton of music things. We weren't a studio known for music, but this man, Ryan, he was actually in college at the time in Omaha. He contacted us because he'd found us in, I believe, in the Yellow Pages, or looked online for a recording studio in Omaha. Anyway, normally we would have said no to something like this, but this guy was just so insistent, and he was so convincing that he managed to get us to agree to let him come in and just talk to him. So he came in, and I met with him because this would be sort of more my project, since I'm more dealt more with sort of more contemporary music. Cleet usually dealt with classical music and things like that. And so I met with this guy, and he was just very gung-ho about the music and about creating something that had meaning and just being a huge star, and, you know, that he wrote good music and all this stuff. And so we were like, okay, I'll work with you. I'll do something. Bring this lady in who's your partner, and we'll record something and see how it goes. So they came in, and we recorded this. And then we added this.
I wish sometimes I could go back
and this.
I'm leaving my name engraved on this guitar.
And finally, it ended up being this.
Now I'm just caught up in the moment.
which you will recognize as a song from their first album, if you're familiar with Acoustic Truth's album. I'm so excited that I get to share clips of audio with you guys, because normally I wouldn't be able to do that. However, I guess if you're following my rambling here, I am the person that produced, recorded, mixed, edited, wrote some of the stuff, performed some of the instruments, sang background vocals on their second album, all that for Acoustic Truth's first 2 full-length albums, including a lot of their singles that they've released that weren't on the album. So that was me. I did that. This is one of the probably 4 or 5 music projects that I've done throughout my life. I'm 35 years old at this point. As I said, I worked at a professional recording studio for 7 years, and I've only done maybe like 5 or 6 really important special projects, and Acoustic Truth was one of those. I did all those things I just mentioned for their first and second album. So Ryan and Sarah came in. They recorded that song I was just talking about, which I believe on the album ended up being called Engraved. And they somehow, Ryan's magic is that he can convince people to do whatever he wants. He is such an amazing business person. He could sell cars all day long. No one would leave the lot without a new car. But on top of that, we were really impressed with just these two's ability to just kind of perform and be authentic with their sound. But at the same time, everything they sang sounded somewhat familiar. So I'm not going to go into their whole history of Acoustic Truth, but they do have an interesting history, so you can look that up online yourself. I know Ryan's talked about it. Ryan and Sarah have talked about it in interviews, so check their maybe their YouTube page for some of that stuff. But they managed to convince us that they wanted to come in over a weekend and play every song that they knew, basically, and they wanted us to just record it live in the studio. And so, because you can't say no to Ryan, they came in and we recorded them for 2 days. They played 33 songs, just acoustic guitar, Sarah's vocal and Ryan's vocal. And it was actually pretty awesome. I mean, for as little experience as they had in the music industry at that point, their performances were amazing. They did a really good job performing in the studio, which is a much different experience than performing live. And there was a bit of magic that happened. I know that sounds cliched, but there was truly magic that happened. And for those recordings, my boss Cleet sort of took the reins for that, because he had much more experience recording things in a live sort of setting. It wasn't a live setting, but live in the studio, everyone in the same room, everything being tracked just to 2-track. We did not multi-track it or anything, which means we don't have tracks of guitar, tracks of Ryan's voice, tracks of Sarah's voice. It was all mixed down to just one stereo track. So we did all the effects, like Ryan and Sarah's reverb, things like that, any delay we had on it. All of that we did, and we recorded it straight down to 2 tracks. So it was what it was. And I actually have all those files right here. And there's a lot of songs on here that have never been released ever. And so this is a really cool special thing that I have, and I cherish it. Not everything on it sounds great, and you can really tell that they were very raw at that point. But anyway, because of that experience, Cleet and I basically fell in love with Ryan and Sarah, and I think that they really appreciated what we were doing for them. For basically, I don't think that they paid us anything for anything that they had done up to this point. But I'm not going to be talking about money or anything like that. But I think that they enjoyed working with us because I was willing to be creative with them, and because Cleet had so much experience recording acoustic things and just recording in general, that it sounded good to them and they were happy with the outcome. And so Ryan, being the person that he is, he said, well, we've already got one song done basically with Engraved. Let's record a whole album. And so over the next year or so, this was in 2012, I believe, over a majority of 2012, we recorded what ended up being this album, their debut album, Time. And I got to do so many things for the first time while we were recording that album. I got to record cello. I got to record upright bass. I recorded the drums for it. Ryan and Sarah came in multiple times to do vocals. Some of the vocals and some of the acoustic guitar in mono, I believe, was done themselves on their end in where they were based out of in Illinois, I believe. And So we had some files going back and forth. A lot of it I worked on when Ryan wasn't necessarily there, but for the most part, they would come for like a weekend or a week or so, and we would hit it hard and record this album. We did that multiple times, and over the course of months and months, we slowly built up the album, and it ended up getting finished and released, and it did surprisingly well. Ryan, I believe, and Ryan and I were just talking about this recently. He thinks that the album hit like in the Billboard Heat Seekers charts in the top 100, I think top 70 even. And they released it on kind of a weird day of the week. And it ended up being in some top 10, I think, iTunes charts for specific things, for specific categories or genres. So it actually did pretty good and was really awesome. Very gratifying for me to actually have a project that I worked on be physical, tangible form. That happened pretty rarely with the stuff that I worked on. And then they went away and life continued at the studio until basically a half a year later, they called and said, hey, we have a couple new songs. Let's do it. And because I can't say no to Ryan, he came in and we did him. And then a few months later, they came back and we did a few more songs. And at that point, we had, I think, 6 or 7 new songs that they did. And they were having fun. And it was at this point, I believe, up until this point, Ryan and Sarah were not a couple. And I'm only going to talk about this very briefly, but I specifically remember telling them when we first met them that they would be much more interesting to the public, if they were playing, if they were a couple. And at the time they were both like, no, we are not a couple. We just play in this band together. We're just friends. And I think their friendship was just sort of still growing at the time as well. But after we had recorded these 7 songs or so over the course of a year, sort of spread out for what I think was initially supposed to be a second album, I remember Ryan pulling me aside and saying, hey, I think I'm going to maybe see if Sarah wants to start dating. And I was like, yeah, dude, that sounds great. So go for it. And so they went away. Well, then a half a year later or so, maybe it was even a year or so later, we get a call from them that they are, dating and everything's going great and they want to do a new album. However, they have decided that they want to turn their focus more towards making specifically a Christian album and being a Christian-based band and having everything that they do based in faith. And that does not mean that anything that they had done before that wasn't based in faith, but I think some of the songs were a little bit more fun, and some of them had, playing with words and things, and some songs that they probably wouldn't perform as much now, though they could insert those songs into their set. But anyway, they decided they wanted to do that, and somewhere in all that, somewhere in these several years between albums here, they got married, which was great. We at the studio made them a silly little video that I'll play a clip for here for their wedding. So that kind of tells you how close we were. And then it came time to work on the second album. And this project, working with Ryan and Sarah, and always was. And again, I sorry, I feel like I need to put a little caveat here. I am talking about all of this. I know this is not relevant to the album specifically. However, this is probably, in context, the only chance I'll ever have to talk about this stuff online, and to just sort of put it out into the public. And so that's why I'm talking about this stuff. But anyway, to get back to the story, working with Ryan and Sarah is a double-edged sword because they are both such wonderful and amazing people. Ryan is totally one of those people. He is completely insufferable because he is pretty much amazing at anything that he tries to do. He barely knew how to play the guitar, picked it up and started playing these really cool, complicated things very cleanly, sounded very great. He can sit down and write a song that sounds like a hit song like that in just a few minutes. It's absolutely insane. And when they would be in the studio recording, he could do everything that he wanted to do. Like there was no question about it. And he did it with very few takes needed and anything like that. His singing was always really great. And I know he feels a little self-conscious about his singing. And Sarah's voice, because of its unique quality, is sort of the focal point of Acoustic Truth. But I feel like Ryan's vocals have always been 100% straight on and just perfect, basically, anytime he's chosen to sing. But at the same time, they knew nothing about the music industry. They were total babies when it came to the music industry, and they had, they were seeing stars in their eyes. They wanted to not necessarily become huge rock stars or anything, but they felt like they had talent and they wanted to share it with the world, and it was going to work, and they were going to be on the radio, and they were going to do huge, massive shows, and it was going to be great and super easy, because that's sort of the way Ryan everything happens for him, because he's just that kind of a person. Everything comes easily for him. And so Cleet and I were constantly trying to bring them back to earth and say, hey, what can we actually do? What can we actually accomplish? What do we have at our disposal that we can use on these albums? And we would constantly tell them, like, learn how to record yourselves, do some of this stuff yourself. Your demos for songs don't need to be these fully produced demos. Just make your Acoustic Truth, for goodness sake. Just do an acoustic guitar track and you're singing. That's what you do when you perform live. That's the bread and butter for you guys. That's where the intimacy comes from you. That's where the genuineness comes from. But Ryan wanted to do every song huge. He wanted to do every song big. He wanted to have drums. He wanted to have an orchestra. He wanted to have a choir, which we never got to add that choirs or orchestras to their music. But for all I know, it's on this album. I don't know. We'll get to that in a little bit. But it was just, as I said, it was sort of a double-edged sword, because we were working really hard on this album. And in some ways, when you're working on a project that's this enormous with people, you get to learn a lot about them, and you get to see all the positive and negative aspects that they have. And so Ryan and I butted heads a lot, but in the end, we ended up having the first album be really great. All the songs we did in between the first and second album, I feel, are really great, some of the best stuff that they did. And then they came back to the studio, I believe it was in 2014, to do the second album. And man, the second album was a massive task. To this day, I think it is probably the biggest project I've ever worked on, without question. It was just insane. I don't even remember the total amount of tracks that are on the album. I think it was 12 or maybe even 13. But we recorded violin. We recorded the drums. We had Austin Ellsbury play drums on it and did a really great job. My friend Bill Arab played a lot of the electric guitar on the album. He played almost all the bass, I think, if not all the bass on the whole album. He played some bouzouki and some other sort of random acoustic instruments. He did a lot on that album. He did a lot. It was him and I doing a lot of the things. But basically, like the first album, Ryan and Sarah came to us and they sat down and they played us these songs on the acoustic guitar. And then we sat and we thought, okay, this song, what could go in this song? Drums, obviously. Bass, obviously. Do we need to have upright bass, or is electric bass okay? Like, basically, we sat and produced the songs. They came to us with the bare bones, just acoustic guitar and vocals, and everything else you hear, we came up with at the studio. Now, for the second album, it was a lot tougher because they stayed in Illinois a lot of the time, and I did a lot of the work on my end in Omaha at the recording studio, sort of doing different things and then sending it to them to get the okay. And I wish I had, maybe I'll try to find it, but I have a picture somewhere where I took all the notes that we had taken throughout the whole process of recording the second album and spread them out at the studio on this big, massive meeting table that we had there. And it like basically filled a very big room on the floor. Like I had like, I think it was like 50 some pages of notes, like full pages of notes. It was an insane amount of notes. And anyway, none of this stuff really matters, as I said, but the process of recording that second album was just absolutely insane. But we made it through it. And at the end, we ended up with Impact, which is the title of their second album, which if you have not heard that, I recommend you listen to that as well. It's very raw, and as I listen to it now, I think that there are many, many, many things that I would do differently. I would mix it much differently, compress it a little bit more, and Ryan and Sarah wanted the vocals to be louder overall than I was comfortable making them, and I wanted them to sit in the pocket a little bit more, but Ryan and Sarah felt that pushing the album the way they wanted to, they wanted the vocals to be the focal point, and I didn't want to bury it behind the music, but when I listen to that album now, I still do think that the vocals are maybe 3 dB too hot across the whole album. If you listen to Acoustic Truth's previous stuff, you'll know that there was always one or two sort of like big rock song, almost like rock anthems on the albums. Those were influence that was sort of coming from me and Ryan together working. We'd like to use guitar solos. We like to use solos wherever we could, because when Ryan and Sarah would first come to us with these songs, they never had a bridge structured, at least for the first album. It was just verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, and then basically chorus again and out. And so I tried to have them add sort of like a bridge section where we could include some sort of instrumental, or on the second album, Impact, Ryan started writing bridges, which I think was a good way for him to sort of mature as an artist. And I think you can tell that when you listen to Impact. I guess just so many things that I had done in my life in the recording industry for the first time was done with Acoustic Truth. And so they are such a very special band to me. And I have not talked to them very much over the last 3 years or so since I left the recording studio. And when I found out that they were having this new album coming out, I knew that I wanted to listen to it. I was very excited. And I've been doing reviews / reactions here on my channel for a while. And I thought, why don't I do this? And Ryan loved the idea. Him and Sarah, I talked to him on speaker. They both gave me their blessing to go ahead and do this and to include the audio and everything from the album, as I mentioned. So I'm just super excited. So with all of that said, my entire history with Acoustic Truth, there's so much more to the story that I'm not going to even get into, but just know it was a crazy and wild ride. And who knows if we'll work together in the future, but this is a really fun and exciting thing that I get to do, and I'm really excited to listen to this album. So, getting to this album, I know that it was recorded. I have some notes here that I took from Ryan. I have some pop droplets here on my paper. This album was recorded over about a 7-month span with a man named Jordan Bailey, who is a Centricity producer, and they recorded it at 410 Music Studio in Corydon, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Corydon, Indiana. And he mentioned to me that their goal, I know one of Ryan's goals in music, is to eventually record an album in Nashville. That's a very common goal for a lot of musical artists, and I hope he gets to do it someday. And I know they were initially supposed to record this album in Nashville, but because of the coronavirus, because of the pandemic last year, they ended up recording it in Indiana. But we'll see if that was ended up being good or not. So all of the songs were written by Ryan and Sarah, with the exception of one song, which is called Carry Me Lord, which is the penultimate song on the album, number 9. That was co-written with a man named Greg Lendy, who is actually Sarah's father. And he also wanted me to mention that the drums on this album were played by the drummer from the Carrollton Band. So I believe bass was done by the guy who did all the recording, Jordan Bailey, and he and Ryan, I believe, together did all the sort of programming and additional things like keyboards and piano and whatnot. And Jordan, I believe, also did the production and bass and whatnot. So it sounds like this Jordan is the new me, and I'm hoping that he is way, way, way better than me and that this album sounds fantastic. But if it doesn't, I'm going to tell you, though I think it's going to sound way better. Let's see. Is that everything that I wanted to mention? I think so. This has been a really long intro, but like I said, I'm excited to get to talk about some of these things for the first time. And just know that Ryan and Sarah are amazing people. And if I love or hate this album, it doesn't matter. They're still amazing people, and I'm just really excited and gratified to be able to do this for them. So, let's get to listening to this album. I am hitting play right now. The first track will be starting momentarily. Right now. This is the opening track on the album Soft But Still by Acoustic Truth, called Soft But Still. Piano. Very interesting sort of reverby intro. Ooh, Sarah starting. The timbre of Sarah's voice. The timbre of Sarah's voice is so uniquely Sarah.
So soft but still. When the world rejects the mention of your name.
Her voice doesn't have a lot of low frequencies in it in general, and so when you have a person like that, a vocalist like that, you can have a sort of a shrill, very high frequency sounding voice. Ooh, man, these drums are awesome. So there's like a tom drum on the right side that's doing a build. a very reverbed, almost like rim shot. Okay, now the song just like basically doubled in tempo, it felt like.
Help me see beyond me. My sinful ways, my fears and pride. I'm setting all of it aside. Help me see beyond me. Help me see beyond me.
This is not what I thought. This is not what I thought it was going to be at all. So I have heard no guitar whatsoever other than this sort of like electric guitar bends there. But we got like sort of like an Imagine Dragons or One Republic sounding thing going on. There is a weird, very weird thing happening with Sarah's vocals where when she's hitting the S's, her S like goes off to the right side. I do not understand how that is happening or what's even going on there. It's almost like they have a track of Sarah's vocals spread wide with a stereo delay, but just the super high frequencies. And so when she hits a sibilant, frequency, or says a word with lots of sibilants to it, your ear is all of a sudden it sounds like there's just some sound on the right side. Oh, that is very weird and distracting.
Put your words in my mouth.
The quality of everything I'm hearing is very, very good. I do think Sarah's vocals are a little sizzly, more sizzly than they should be. I'm sure they're probably using quite a bit of de-essing already on her, but removing some of those sizzly frequencies, I think a little bit more could have been better. And I'm not sure how the mastering on this was done, but that could have also been a sort of a decision in mastering to boost all of the... So we have Ryan singing in the background. He's doing a harmony vocal, singing in the same octave that she is singing. There are a lot of very massive sounds happening that are ticking up the stereo spectrum. Ryan and Sarah's vocals are in the middle. I feel like Ryan could be maybe off to the left a smidge. But Sarah's, the thing that's happening with Sarah's vocal is pretty distracting to me. I'm really hoping that that doesn't continue throughout the album. I don't even know how they would have gotten that effect. Okay, so that's track 1. Man, we'll see what track 2 is. I'm anxious to see if we get any songs that are like them playing the guitar and singing along. I know Ryan has always wanted his songs to sound like they belong on the radio. And
Wrap me in your love as I unwrap my sheets. I'm on my knees.
okay, I'm hearing some like string noises there, but I don't really hear. I hear maybe some very light picking. That sounds nice. There's some pads in the back, synth pads. And whatever was happening with Sarah's vocals are not there on this song. Heard a smidge of auto-tune there, but that's not too bad. And could have been intentional as well. Big cymbal swell. I was curious. My initial impression was going to be that I didn't think that this album was going to have any live drums on it really at all, and that they were all going to be programmed drums. And so far, I believe that's everything we've heard, with the possible minus possibly the tom builds and maybe some of the cymbal swells or cymbals on the first track. But then when I read the note from Ryan that the drummer on the band was the guy from the Carrollton band, I thought, well, maybe they did have more drums. If you listen to the albums that I made with Acoustic Truth, they just sound like a band performing. So the way they're approaching these songs is from a sort of minimalistic approach to what's happening in the music. Right now I hear some, I believe it's a combination of acoustic guitar and piano off to the left, and it is sort of just an arpeggiated pattern going. But for the most part, I do not hear like a bass or a guitar or any sort of a driving melody whatsoever. I hear some sort of strings that I hear now doing sort of like a bum 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 bum, sort of like stabs to sort of help everything feel like it's building the tension. But there is not sort of like a through melody in the music. It's very minimalistic in terms of the approach they're taking. So now we have the piano, I feel, is spread out a little bit more. There's a bit more going on to it. The part is sort of the focal part of the point of the music here. Yeah, giant piano notes, and then overdubbed piano part. Now Sarah in the background doing some haunting vocals with lots of reverb on it, very wet sounding. We got some shakers, a shaker. The drums, there's a lot of percussive elements happening that aren't necessarily someone playing the drums. That's very common with modern pop music, to have a lot of percussive things, a lot of staccato-y type of very fast transient sounds happening that have really no basis in like a melody or anything like that, and just sort of like these percussive elements that are happening throughout the spectrum. Okay, they're building up with those strings that were doing the sort of stabbing earlier. I'm going to assume that they're sort of programmed strings, but so you have almost sort of like a tribal beat happening now in the background. Ryan's vocals off to the left a little. So far, Sarah has been the focal point of both songs. There's a lot of reverb, a lot of cavernous sounding space in these first two mixes, which is also very common in modern pop music. As I mentioned, it's very common to have a lot of percussive elements that aren't necessarily someone playing drums. And so then to balance that, you have very wet, very cavernous sounding reverb, very, very elongated reverb on effects on things, so that there's this contrast of fast. So there we have, I believe that's an electric guitar, or could be acoustic guitar, just plucking some strings, maybe palm muted on the higher registered strings. And there was some guitar at the end there too. Oh boy, okay, track 3.
To give my confession, I have
starting with just Sarah.
In every direction.
A lot of reverb, some delay as well.
Saves all imperfection. He is the way, there is no exception. Yes, Jesus saves as I walk through the valley of the shadow. I fear no evil thing as I run through
very, very cool drums. This is Valley of the Shadow. Sorry, my headphones are being annoying. It's a cool trick to make stuff sound massive on the drums, and to have a really interesting little percussive groove element going, is to hit the open hi-hat with the snare and to close it then. It's a very sort of like a hip-hop or jazz type of drum thing to do, to make something feel like the groove, I guess it makes something feel like it has a bit more of a groove to it. That was a really cool sort of drum effect that they had there, sort of looping the drums. Okay, so in this song, Ryan's vocals are in the middle with Sarah. On this song, I feel like Sarah's vocals are just a slight overdriven. There's a little bit of overdrive on them, a little bit of a distortion on there. when she gets a little bit more aggressive with it, which is nice. Very, very cool harmonized sort of guitar part in there. That was very neat. There could have been some bass in there as well. Okay, we got some claps, very dry claps in there going with a snare drum, someone playing a snare, and that is a real snare. It's very hard to program things like that. Letting the acoustic guitar sort of help everything build. Again, this song does not have any sort of melody being... The melody is purely basically just what Sarah is singing. The instrumentation is not there to sort of carry the melody at all. The instrumentation is just there to sort of create sounds. There's no definitive sort of... Now I hear a bit of a piano, and the acoustic guitar is strumming, I believe. So those things are happening, but they're not the focal point. The drums are definitely the focal point of this song, as have the 3 previous songs. As I mentioned, the percussive elements are sort of filling the space and are very loud, and a lot of them are dry compared to everything else that's happening. Definitely a bit of overdrive on Sarah's vocals here, and I enjoy that. I think that sounds nice. Gives the song a bit more of a more powerful feel. And I know from experience recording Sarah, it is hard for her to sing aggressively. She has basically one level of intensity that she sings with, and it's pretty much that the whole time. Okay, now we have acoustic guitar.
I wanna change.
And it sounds to me like it was a acoustic guitar recorded in stereo, and then maybe an additional overdub doing the melody as well, or doing the same exact part, because there's some interesting sort of stereo artifacts happening there. Sounds very nice. The guitar is very loud, and Ryan and Sarah are sitting in the middle, so the guitar is sort of... It's not too loud, but it is very close mic'd, which gives the impression that the guitar is in your face, sort of. And Ryan and Sarah sound like they're standing a few feet from you, which is not a bad thing. That's just it's a one way to approach mixing acoustic guitars and things like that. And I think it sounds very good. So the kick that was there playing sounded like a real kick, so someone could have been sitting in the studio recording drums for this song. But not necessarily. Could have been a sample. I'm hearing lots of strings and stuff on this song. There's a lot of mid-range to low frequencies sort of floating around in this song, but it doesn't sound muddy. It's a very nice mix. See, Ryan's getting to shine a little more in this song. I think the strings are programmed and not necessarily played. They sound very good, though. That driving kick just going constantly. We have a shaker going in there as well. A little snare drum in there. So we have more strings coming in that are a little drier and a little bit louder. Some background oohs and ahs I think I hear in there. Everything sort of allowing the song to build. Drums building more as well. Now we have a tambourine in there as well, this section here. All helping contribute to the feeling of building. Acoustic guitar strumming with the same sort of format they had at the beginning of the song. All the failures and all the questions beyond belief. Now I feel you wrap me in your loving arms. See, for this part, Ryan is singing the lead and Sarah was doing the harmony. So that was nice. And then having her just end it wet there. Okay, now we have acoustic guitar and electric guitar strumming. So that's kind of cool. Very different feeling so far.
Please don't go
Ryan's song.
asking what words you could have said. The storm was gonna hit her regardless. Well, I know you're crying hard tonight, harder than you ever have.
Not a lot of low frequencies in Ryan's vocal at all, which does help it sort of sit itself nice in the mix.
I love ya, Dad, you taught me how to be a man.
The best listener was my sweet, sweet sister. And brother, you're my
Yeah, definitely some
best
distortion on
of
Sarah's voice there.
friends.
Some brass patches.
I'll always hold the memories and all the love you gave to me.
The drum sounds that they're using on this song feel a lot more dry. The song in general feels a lot less cavernous as the first few songs. The last song didn't feel as cavernous. It felt close to being muddy because there was a buildup of sort of mid-range frequencies. This song has none of that at all. Ryan coming back in to do the sort of first half of the chorus there. And Sarah doing the second half. The song reminds me of something, but I can't quite put my finger on it, which is good. When I hear a song for the first time and it sounds familiar to you, that means it was written well. Some electric guitar strumming on the left there. And some humming. Some hi-hat crashing kind of going on there. Building it up. Dry, close claps. Sounds good. Ryan doing the lead during the first half of the chorus. See, I like that. On the last chorus of the song here, they had Sarah have an overdub, a harmony vocal for herself, which the two previous choruses she had sung the second half of the chorus by herself. And then repeating the chorus as well the third time here, very nice. Keeping the claps in as well, having the sort of brass sounds on the sides as well make the whole thing feel much bigger during the chorus. Now that sounds like a trombone almost, and it sounds like a real trombone. Maybe the brass we've been hearing this whole time has been real brass, which would be really cool if that was the case. It's pretty hard to make something like that sound real like that with the dynamics there. Could be done with automation, but it sounded pretty real to me. So now we have some synth pads in the back, just sort of establishing a tone with then a strummed acoustic guitar on the right and a pattern strummed acoustic guitar on the left. Sarah doing the leads on this song, vocals. Ryan sharing with her on a duet song. It's good. I think Ryan should sing more. Not that Sarah's not great. Her voice is very, 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 very cool. Sort of like an electric piano sort of on the right side with a delay on the left, kind of going back and forth. Echo delay. I love that. Cool effect. Very low frequencies there. Building some drums. Here's some low piano notes as well. Some staticky technical issue noises like that. Okay, there's a percussive element in there that almost sounds like someone hitting their acoustic guitar a little bit or something like that. Very cool. Almost sounds like a bongo or something, but it's resonating like an acoustic guitar to me. Could be a bongo or some sort of a little child's drum almost or something. Very cool though. And it's continuing. Now we have strumming guitar on the right as well. Now is probably a good time to remind you that, as I said at the beginning earlier, I think I said it, I don't know, I recorded the intro several times for this. I am not the kind of person that really listens to and breaks down lyrics. As you can tell, I'm telling you exactly what I'm hearing the first time I'm listening to this. And so I hope nobody's getting too mad at me for not saying, oh, listen how profound their message is and how amazing it is. It's changed my life. That's not what I listen to music for. I really enjoy the production aspect of it. Awesome build here. Okay. A lot of claps on this album so far, I've heard. That's really nice. Gives the album a bit of a character that it wouldn't necessarily have otherwise. As I said, the percussive elements on this album are kind of what's standing out to me so far. Sarah's flowing very nicely from phrase to phrase here. I can definitely tell that she has matured as a singer a lot since we recorded Impact. Sarah's an amazing vocalist because her voice has such a unique and interesting tone, and she does very good when they're performing live, but she wasn't always the best at being able to improvise in the studio or being able to change something. Once she had sung something in practice, it was hard for her to sort of go into the studio and try to do something different. And that was a bit of a challenge, but we always managed to overcome it every time. And I think that the albums, you can really tell her vocals are, the standout of all the songs, I believe, on the albums the two albums that I worked on with them. So here we have another synth pad bass just kind of going to establish something going in the background. Minimalistic again, we have some bass going on this song. So now that she's singing, the acoustic guitar that was happening to sort of establish a key is gone. It's in there a little bit doing some accent strums. Okay, we got some arpeggiated guitar plucking there going on. Again, that's sort of the only thing that's establishing what's happening. Everything else is sort of a tone. Everything fits within the sort of key that your ear is perceiving the song to be, but if you took the vocals out, you could really be singing almost anything over a lot of this because the music is not driving the melody. The melody is all in the lyrics. And that's, this song is a little, the guitars are playing chord sequences and everything, so they are sort of leading the song in terms of where the melody can go. But the approach on this is just so vastly different from the music that I did with them. It's very nice. I'm sure this is what Ryan had in mind kind of the whole time we were working, but we just didn't have the capability of doing things that sounded like this. One of my favorite bands is Depeche Mode, and they are sort of the masters at creating a song, writing it on piano or guitar or whatever, and then basically taking all the melody away and just creating a bed of sound that can sound chaotic, can sound beautiful, can sound haunting, but there's not a lot of melody happening in the music. It's just sounds, bleeps, bloops, low frequencies, drones, things like that creates the atmosphere of the song, and then the vocals just lay over the top of that, singing the melody and giving you sort of the melody of the song. And that's what this is doing. Very cool electric guitar part here going. Pretty complicated, fast plucking part too. Sounds really good. We have a cymbal, someone bashing on the cymbal. That sounds like it could be programmed rather than played. And I want to say too, When I say something is programmed and not played, I do not mean that in a negative way. It is very hard to program things and make it sound natural, which it is sounding now in these songs. But that is an art unto itself, just as much and just as legitimate as any musical performance you will have. Very cool acoustic guitar strumming there, barely getting no, just being used basically as a percussive element. You could almost be doing that on like a washboard, same sort of effect. Man, Sarah's doing good singing on this song.
Don't fear the terror of the night, the arrows that fly by.
I feel like she had to go to a place there a little bit that she might have been a little difficult for her to reach, but she nailed it, I think. Might have heard a little distortion in there, more distortion than I wanted, but I was talking over it, so I can't really comment on that. Oh my gosh, we're on track 8 already. Holy cow, this is going fast. Piano and acoustic guitar. And that sounds like a real piano too, I should mention. Ryan, 100% dry.
Times are tough. My wife just ain't the same. She's been hanging with her new friends. There's no time for drinks with me. No more lazy Sunday mornings. She slips out while I'm asleep.
Awesome stereo panned electric guitar part there. Piano is very amazing in this one. Song reminds me of Blue October a little bit, one of my other favorite bands. And that's very high praise because the production of their music is, on some of their albums, absolute top notch. And to just have that one hi-hat hit on the left there, sort of establishing the downbeat of the... that sounds like a real drum kit for sure. Playing with brushes as well, which is something that Austin, the drummer on the 2 previous Acoustic Truth albums, did on some of their songs. When you play with brushes, it's a whole different feel. And sometimes it can feel very jazzy because I feel like that's the genre of music that utilizes brush playing the most. But when you have it in a song like this, it gives the whole thing a much sort of more like lazy feel to it. You can do things with brushes that you wouldn't be able to do if you were using sticks because everything is toned down a lot. There's nothing harsh when you're hitting it with a brush. And the way it's mixed in the song is to have it very loud and very dry. And it's very, you can do really cool things with sound when you take a sound that's quiet and soft and bring it up in volume and have it be dry. It sounds very, very intimate. You could be playing this same drum part on drums with sticks. You could be playing it really loud and just turn the signal down, and the volume of the snare drum, for example, could be the same, but the sound would sound drastically, completely different. And so when you record things quietly, you get a different timbre than you would if you record things loudly. And when a band goes into the studio, one of the simplest tricks to tell them to do something to help them sort of get particular sounds that they want is to tell everyone to just play softly, play quietly. If you're in a band and you practice, you're in a room probably practicing and you don't have the fancy, incredible in-ear monitor equipment, so you just play loudly because everyone else is trying to play loud to hear themselves as well. And when a band comes into the studio to record, that is something that a good producer will tell the band, hey, everybody settle down and let's play quieter. I'll turn you all up in the headphones while we're monitoring and you'll be able to hear everyone. And then a lot of things come out in the arrangement of songs that would have necessarily been able to become a focal point when you do that. I will say this song so far has sounded the most like a sort of a normal, like a band performing a song.
I see his face.
Nice warble on the, I believe that's a electric guitar there. Slide guitar sounds like almost. I really do enjoy the drums. the dryness, the dry brushes. They're a little off to the left, but I think that's just how the kit was. So. And when you have things like sounds like a snare drum is something that can fight for attention with a vocal a lot, because a snare drum is, of course, sort of a harsh sound regardless of how quiet you're playing it. That was nice, bringing the volume of the piano up there at the end. That was a very, very, very nice song. I'm surprised that song wasn't the last one on the album. I'm curious what these last two songs here will be. I haven't even been saying. This is "Carry Me, Lord." This is the song that Sarah and Ryan co-wrote with her father.
I've asked of you before, but still I bear the awful pain. You know my thoughts.
I'm curious what microphones they used to record the vocals on for this album. It has a very, very particular sound to it, the vocals do, and that could be the microphone, but that also probably more likely is post-processing things. But there is almost no low frequencies in the vocals. Sorry, there's almost no low frequencies in the vocals at all. And there is a bit of a boost in certain frequencies up high, and probably some de-essers on everything to make it less crispy.
The flowers and the trees are in your life.
Okay, we have a percussive element off to the left here.
Aren't I
That
worth much more?
I'm not sure where the song's going to go, but I'm not sure that really fits there.
Faltered steps,
We'll see where the song goes, though.
my path has
I feel like if it builds more, then that
will is still
could make
my
sense there.
aim. But whether
Here we hear some cymbals now on the far left.
it seems the heartache
Could be a stereo image, though, just playing a cymbal on the left.
carry me, Lord,
Drums.
carry me, Lord.
Drum kit, okay.
Carry me, Lord, carry me, Lord. Carry me, Lord, through the hurt and the pain, past the fierce
I don't know why
winds and the cold, bitter rain.
the drum kit definitely feels like it's leaning to the left more. Maybe he was having, the mixing engineer was having trouble with the drums fighting with the vocals, so just move them over to the left and let the vocals sit in the middle more. This is awesome. That little guitar riff in there.
My suffering brought me to the cross. Your son died as a man, so senseless to the
Okay, this is my favorite song on the album. I'm sure Ryan and Sarah would have known that or guessed that. I love it though. Sounds really good. Now this song, as opposed to any of the songs I feel previously, there is a bass guitar playing a bass guitar part. And so, as I've kind of mentioned the whole time, this song, kind of like the previous one as well, the songs are being carried melodically by the instruments as well as the vocals. So I feel like as we've gone through the band, the songs have gotten a little bit more like, okay, we're slowly turning and morphing into a band. You know, it started out at the very beginning, the first couple songs, having almost no melodic sort of elements happening in the music, and having those just be the percussive elements, the sort of low droney stuff, the very big synth pads, the cathedral-like reverb, creating a bed for the vocals to sit on. But now it feels like everything is, very nice sort of retardando there at the end, with everything sort of slowing down and going. The human element very present there. I wasn't paying super attention, but I don't know if they went to the chorus a third time there. If not, that really bums me out and really disappoints me. I should have been paying a bit more attention. Structure is a very important thing to me regarding how much I like a particular song or not. Ryan ending the album, starting vocals on the last song. That's nice.
Come to the river and wash you so clean. If I've been your teacher,
Hearing a lot of auto-tune on here. And again, that's not a bad thing. Could be intentional. It's a very popular sound in music right now. Getting a lot more like sort of One Republic vibes with this song again. And I don't know if I've ever heard Ryan sing like this, so that's really, really, really cool that he would step out of his comfort zone, which his comfort zone sort of exists in this sort of Jason Mraz sort of area. But this is totally different. Amazing effect there on the vocals, letting it bloom out. And I'm hearing that a lot throughout the whole album. Like, you take a little chunk of something and add an effect to that chunk, rather than having effects on a track overall. Something that's also been much more common in more modern times, because you didn't have all the processing power to do things like that. But just imprinting reverb on the end of a phrase or something like that can really help emphasize transitions and build for the ends of phrases, things like that. And also help something like a chorus feel like it's ending and having everything sort of come down energy-wise back for a verse. Kick drum in there now. Man, it almost doesn't even sound like Ryan at all. Good job, Ryan. I know you have, I'm sure you had to step out of your comfort zone to sing this, and it sounds really good. You know, there's been a lot of different elements happening on this album, and you can tell that it was made, you know, over the course of a long time with many, many, many different elements being thrown in to different songs. But I will say right now, like, Jordan Bailey, you did a very good job. This entire album could have never been made by Ryan and Sarah and I. This is, I feel, well, I'll get to that in a second with my overall thoughts. Okay, Sarah's singing a little bit now. And you can hear a lot of auto-tune on her as well, so I think that it was a choice on this album to use that intentionally. They're using it as an effect. Some more brass is back. Interesting little vibrato thing there. Ooh, what was that? Could have been a vocal with some sort of a vocoder effect or something on it. No, it's just straight up synth sounds. Love it. Give me some 80s sounding synths. Especially some synth rises. Are you kidding me? Do it. We're getting so close to being overly overcompressed, overdone here, but it's not. It's right. It's just reaching the peak of energy. So now everything is sort of drowning the vocals out a little bit there, but I think that was sort of the intent. That was what was happening, building the arrangement of the song around it. All right. Huh. Okay, well. So, like I was starting to say there, I think that this album is way better than anything that Ryan and Sarah and I could have made together. And that was exactly what I was hoping that it would be. I know that Ryan has always wanted, I think he's had in his head what he always envisioned the songs to be when they were done. And I think this is much closer to his vision, if not his exact vision. And I think that, you know, the two albums that I made with them, they were what they needed to be to sort of give Ryan and Sarah the experience of recording in a studio. And we were trying to make something that could sort of be reproduced live and at the end of the day could be something that they that felt more, I guess, manageable, I guess. Whereas this is just full on, let's go, let's do it. Let's make a very modern sounding album. I mentioned throughout there several times that excuse me, several of the songs did not have any sort of melodic elements happening in the music. It was just percussive elements. It was sort of drony things and reverb drenched sounds, creating sort of a textured atmosphere. It was almost, the first song, I got a few like trip hop vibes to it, and I can definitely say that throughout several of the other songs on the album as well. Like, this album was about two things. It was about Ryan and Sarah singing their message and singing out and doing a great job singing. But the other thing that this album was about was creating these sonic landscapes for the songs to sort of, for the melody of the vocals or of any of the guitar that was happening to sit on top of. So every song had sort of a different character. Every song had a different color, if you want to think of it like that. No song sounded very sonically similar to any other song. There were several songs that had real drums, and every song that had the real drum kit in it, the drums were they were played from a sort of the approach of using a different method, whether you were using the brushes or the sticks, or just having sort of like tom builds, things like that. This track 3 was had that really cool drum sort of loop in there, and I think it was someone playing, but not necessarily a loop, but the part itself looped, of just having the cool again, so almost sort of like a trip hop beat in there going. And then a lot of the songs had clapping in them and all sorts of percussive elements, which the amount of shaker and everything I played on their second album, I'm glad that they sort of kept some of those auxiliary percussion instruments in their music for this. But if you don't have those elements in a lot of the music like this, you can feel like you're missing sort of a percussive constant through a song that you kind of need there to have a bit of a rhythm continue throughout the whole song. There weren't a lot of moments in any of the songs whatsoever when a drummer was playing and there was like a cymbal pattern happening. There weren't a lot of moments where like, okay, during the chorus here, we're just going to be crashing or we're going to do a ride here. That didn't really happen. And that is something that is a lot more of a sort of a modern approach to doing pop music, to basically have all the drummer play his drum kit, but have almost no cymbals, maybe a hi-hat, maybe a ride, or one crash to do like crashes. But you just have the drummer play using the toms and mostly focusing on just the kick and the snare. And then afterwards you add other rhythmic elements to the song. And that was what I also mentioned quite a bit. There were a lot of percussive rhythmic elements to the arrangements of the song that weren't necessarily contributing to the melody at all, just creating that sort of soundscape for the melody in the vocals and the little bit of guitar that was there to sit over the top. I think all the guitar playing that I heard on the whole album was fantastic. And one of the reasons it was so fantastic was it was subtle. I know that Ryan is a very good guitar player, and I don't know if Jordan played any guitar on the album or not. But if he did, then he must be just as good, if not better, of a guitar player than Ryan is. And all the parts were very tasty. It was a lot of arpeggiated, fast picking stuff, which can be very, very difficult to do and to time correctly. And all of that sounded magnificent. And it created really nice, it worked really nice with synth pads and the sort of beds of sound that existed underneath all the percussive elements to have a moving thing happening, whether it was on the piano or on the guitar. The piano playing, I think, sounded fantastic. The use of low notes throughout the entire album to sort of accentuate what was happening. A lot of the songs felt big and huge, but none of them felt heavy almost at any moment. And it's kind of hard to get a song to feel huge and big without having heavy elements or aggressive elements in it. You know, I much more come from a sort of a more metal and heavy music background. And when you want a heavy song to sound heavy, you turn the distortion up on the guitars and you bash the crash cymbals and then have everyone sing, louder. Whereas in pop music like this, you just take the different elements and you One other great thing about this album was that everything was played dynamically, and it wasn't just necessarily playing something and bringing the level of it up. You could hear in the playing and in the performance of what was happening, the intensity being brought up, but never to the point of being aggressive, as I was saying. And so that sort of helped things build and ebb and flow. The whole album was very tasty. I guess everything I'm just saying kind of leans into that fact. The album was very tasty. There were very few sort of like guitar licks, which I know Ryan likes to put in songs a lot. So there weren't necessarily like little guitar transition pieces or anything like that. Almost no lead guitar whatsoever on the whole album, which is a little surprising. I, for one, love it when a band goes into the studio and like leaves everything in there. I hate it when a band goes into the studio and says, okay, we're going to do what we can do live so that when we release this album, people learn to love the album. They listen to the album, and then when they come see us play it live, it's basically just like listening to the album performed live. I don't like that. I like it when a band goes into the studio and says, hey, this song needs synth pads underneath it. This song needs programmed synths. It needs programmed drum elements. It needs hi-hat stuff. It needs shakers. It needs all these extra things that aren't going to be there when we perform live. I want a band to go into the studio, leave it all there. And it sounds like Ryan and Sarah did that with this album. So yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's by far their best album. I don't think it even comes close. I could see if someone, really, really liked the sort of more not laid back, but the sort of more band approach that we took on their first two albums, the the sort of more intimate feeling of being able to imagine what's happening, when you listen to a song on Impact, you can hear the drums, you can hear the bass, you can hear the guitars, you can hear the vocals, and you can imagine in your head someone sitting in a room performing everything that you're hearing. On an album like this, so many of the elements that you're hearing might have been performed in the studio, but the way that they were all sort of like a cacophony of sounds coming together, it's hard to imagine how everything was created and how it was decided where to put what. And if someone really liked that aspect of the first two albums, the sort of more band natural sound, I could see how listening to this would be like, man, is this even the same band? It does sound vastly, vastly different. But again, knowing Ryan and Sarah the way that I do, I think this is sort of the way that Ryan has always heard his music in his head, and we just were never able to do it with the tools that we had and the experience that we had before they went to Jordan and recorded with him. So I'm so thankful to Jordan for being able to, I assume, realize Ryan's vision in a more complete way. So I think I can say without a doubt that I highly recommend this album. As I mentioned at the very beginning, and if you skip that part, just know that this album hasn't been released as of this recording yet. June 7th, this album comes out. Everyone go look it up. I'll include a link to purchase it or pre-order it in the description of this video. Ryan also wanted me to mention, I had to go get my phone to look this up. Ryan also wanted me to mention that they have a song, one of the songs on this album. I'm not sure which one it is. I think it may have been Wings of Eagles, which was song number 7, but they're going to be doing a collaboration, and they're going to be releasing a version of that song that has a guy on it named Marcus Rogers, who's going to be collaborating with them, and they already have, I believe, that version of the song recorded, and Ryan said that he was so proud of it, he loved it so much, he wanted me to mention it in the video. So if you're a fan of Marcus Rogers, know that Acoustic Truth is going to be doing a collaboration with him in the future. Let me see what else. I got to double check here and make sure. I guess I should say as well, like, there was nothing that Ryan told me he wanted me to say specifically. Like, I'm not doing any sort of a deal with Ryan and Sarah on this at all. If you skip to the end of the video here and you didn't listen to my entire story with Acoustic Truth, just know that, like, Ryan and Sarah are very special people to me, and the amount of work that I've done with them is some of the best and most important work I've done in my entire career. So that's why they're so special to me, apart from just being great, wonderful people. But yeah, I guess, like, I didn't lie with anything that I just said. I guess I just want to sort of add the caveat in there. Like, everything I just said was totally genuine. That was the first time I'd ever heard of this album. I've ever heard this album at all. I will apologize for people who probably didn't want me to talk over it the entire time and listen to it, but that was the whole point of this video. I hope everybody got to sort of enjoy the album, even though I talked over it the whole time. I've never done a video like this where I'm going to intentionally have the audio in there. So I don't know how that's going to go over. But, you know, regardless, I think it was a fantastic album. I think it's definitely Acoustic Truth's best album, like I said. I think that Ryan and Sarah are only going to go on to do even bigger and better things, you know, in the future. Hopefully they can do some touring stuff now that the pandemic seems to be coming to not necessarily an end, but, you know, the world is opening back up. I know a lot of bands and tours are going to be starting again in July of this year. So having their album come out in June is a really good thing. I don't think that they had it done months and months and months ago and that they've been waiting for the pandemic to sort of slow down so they could go on tour or anything like that. I think just fortuitously the timing ended up working out that this was when their album was coming out. So I think that it's a great album. I think it's a very contemporary, modern sounding album. I think that I will say I didn't really focus on the lyrics very much at all. And I know that a lot of people who are Acoustic Truth fans probably enjoy their music because of the lyrics. And so but I pointed out everything that I noticed my first time listening. And so you know now how I listen to music for the first time. And I will listen to this album a lot more now in the future. And I will focus on the lyrics, you know, in later listens. But I love the production side of music so much. And this album had so many amazing things to listen to and for me to focus on production-wise that it was like I felt like a little kid in a candy store. So I'm really happy with that. I'm happy that I didn't have any other catastrophes or anything, but Ryan and Sarah, thank you for giving me early access to this album. Everybody else, thank you very much for watching this video. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next, but I have other reviews on my channel if you want to check those out as well. I actually do know what I'm going to be doing next. It might be something with Nightwish, if you're a Nightwish fan, but anyway, thank you very much for watching. Go out, listen to a bunch of music. That's the whole point of all this. If you find something good, share it with somebody else. Spread the love, spread the joy, spread the music around. That's one of the best gifts we can give everybody else is a new band to discover. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Try playing, I guess, quietly if you can.
That's why I'm thinking we should trade places.
Well, that might be actually better.
Just from here down. That's funny. That's funny. I did. That is funny. I don't know if we want to end on that big squeak man.
Yeah, I don't know or not, but I will say that the beginning of that was pretty good.
Okay. Every time you said, okay, play fast, you notice I played slow. You know, okay, no, come up, and I'm going down. It's like.
So I already have the album. I just got the files from Ryan early, as I mentioned. I burned the CD myself. As far as I know, I don't know if they're going to be making CDs available, and I'm not going to go into all of that. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. But you don't need to worry about that because, as I said, I'm going to include the audio in this video. I am super excited for this. As I mentioned now multiple times, I'm going to sneeze again. Oh my goodness. What a mess of a video.